So you might have a project coming up that you have to do, or you might have some work coming up that you have to get done, or your boss asked you to stay late, or he asked you to come in early, or you simply have to go home and mow the lawn. Whatever the task is, you have this feeling of like, oh, I don't want to do that task. And it's this feeling of dread. Today I'm going to talk to you about how you can get over this feeling of dread and actually get excited to do the work. And you'll actually like the work so much that it doesn't even feel like you're working. So I've gotten pretty good at whenever I'm working, I've gotten pretty good at just being engaged now. And I've gotten pretty good at seeing work as an opportunity to be challenged. And whether it's a job, if I ever have to go back to full-time work and I have to do the job, whatever it is, it's a challenge and it's work in a good way. And so I used to not feel like this all the time. I used to have dread when I had to work. I used to have dread on doing challenging things, and I still do, obviously. Even today, I was eating lunch and I knew it was a little bit of a break from work, and I knew I had to get back into it. And there was a little bit of resistance, but I've gotten way better at just being able to spearhead it and get back into the work quicker and have a better mindset on it. And so how did I do it? And what is this mindset? Well, this mindset is called the flow state. And what I've learned from entrepreneurs and who I consider good workers and people who have good information on work or have a healthy view on work, they always talk about this state called the flow state. And so I learned about this and realized that there were periods in my life where I was in the flow state and I was flowing, but I didn't even realize it. So think back to when you were younger and think back to when you were playing catch with your parents, or think back to when you were playing a sport with your friends. You were just doing. You weren't thinking. You were just in the moment and, you saw the ball and you ran for it. There was no I have to go home and I have to pay the bills and I have to do this and I have to do this. There was no being in your head because you were simply engaged in the task. So think about also when you're doing your favorite hobbies, when you're watching TV, it's enjoying. Think about when you're playing a board game and you're just thinking about the board game and you're engaged in it and you're having fun. That's the flow state. And this is a side note. I didn't even think I was going to talk about it, but I even heard something recently from this entrepreneur called Sam Ovens. And he was saying that there was a study indicating that this flow state is the most joyful and happy that people can feel. It's kind of the best state that we can be in. And I think the reason for this, just based on what I think, is because when we're engaged with what we're doing, we're in the present moment. And when we're really grounded and anchored to the present moment, then we aren't really thinking and really carried away with our thoughts. And from what I know, when you get carried away in your thoughts and you're just living in this cloud of your head, that's when you're not in the flow state. That's when you're not enjoying yourself. So the key is to get into these flow states more often. And what does this look like? For example, right now for me, the flow state would be me being grounded and engaged in this video. I'm fully into what I'm doing and I'm fully engaged and I'm finding these anchor points my voice, and I'm like I'm observing like my surroundings. I'm observing this light, and I'm also listening to like things around me. I'm just kind of in the present moment, and it's these anchor points that are getting me into the present moment. So that's the thing I wanted to share with you is, first of all, that the way to enjoy the work is to have periods of flow more often, and that flow is one of the most enjoyable states you can be in because you're kind of just in the present moment, you're engaged, and you're not really thinking about anything. And then also how to get in this state of flow. So the ways that I've got into the flow, and I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, I can now like see how I was in the flow state. And the ways that I got into flow were through anchor points to the present moment. So, for example, when I used to work at my job at the golf course, I used to wash golf carts and I used to power wash them. And, it was pretty fun. Like, I was always like trying to race and like trying to, well, maybe not even race. I was trying to wash the carts as best as I could. Like, I was trying to like make it as clean as possible. I didn't want to miss a speck of dirt. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that was being in a flow state because my mind was grounded to the power washer. My mind was grounded to the satisfying like feeling of getting the dirt off. My mind was grounded to what I was doing, and that created a flow state, and that therefore created joy, and it didn't even feel like work at the time. So you see how like it doesn't necessarily matter what you're doing. It can be washing golf carts, or it can be creating YouTube videos, or it can be working at your regular 9-to-5 job. And it doesn't really matter what it is. What you really need to get into these flow states are anchor points. And these anchor points are the thing that are going to keep you grounded throughout the whole like process, throughout the whole like day or time that you're working. So like I said, for me, the anchor point when I was washing golf carts was the satisfying feeling of like getting the dirt off. It was the like idea that I wanted to make it as clean as possible. That was my focus, and that was what I was doing. So how can you find anchor points in your work? How can you get more grounded to what you're doing, whether it's doing this new project at work, or it's staying later, or it's having to go home and mow the lawn? And even though it's tough, the key is to find these anchor points. So an example of this is even if you're at your 9-to-5 job and you work in an office, an example of this would be developing a better relationship with the keyboard. I know it sounds like weird, but you want to ground yourself into your like what you're doing. Like if you're sending a message to somebody, instead of getting so caught up in the message and getting so caught up in your mind, get more caught up in that satisfying feeling of like writing the message or like typing, and start to listen to how it sounds when you type. If you're clicking on the mouse, like pay attention to how it feels when you click on the mouse. Like, how does the mouse sound? Like, how sometimes you get more excited when like you click one mouse and as opposed to another. Like some sound better than others. Like some clicks are more satisfying than others. That's the way that I think about it. And that's getting into the flow state. The more like anchor points you can have, whether it's the keyboard, whether it's the mouse, or whether you're about to dial somebody, you're about to dial the phone and call somebody, pay attention to how it sounds when you're dialing. Like, be more engaged with what you're doing. If you're mowing the lawn, instead of thinking like, oh, this sucks, while you're doing it. Get out of your head and start focusing on that vibrating feeling of like when you're mowing the lawn, you know? Pay attention to that sensation. Pay attention to the lines, you know, like how straight can you make the lines? And I hope this is like can help you at least apply it to your example. Maybe it's like doing the project at work. Same thing. You want these anchor points, and these anchor points might be like connecting with a coworker or like connecting with your team. And the way you do that is just like talk to them like a person, you know, just have a conversation with them like you're just talking to a person in the present moment, like striking up a new random conversation. You know, you don't have to put these like mental barriers and these like boundaries up. Like just start to be more in the present moment and, you know, make small conversation, make things and like have enjoyment when you're doing it. And you'll find that you're going to be more engaged. And when you're more engaged, you are in the flow state more often. So hopefully this helps, and like you can kind of see what I mean by the flow state. It's these anchor points. It's this connection to the present moment. Like right now, my connection to the present moment is me sort of paying attention to my voice and like the sensation of it. I know it sounds weird, but that's what's keeping me grounded and engaged. And the more of these anchor points that you have in your work, no matter what work it is, the more enjoyment you're going to find. And try to make it a game. Try to make your work, like the hard work, a game. Like I said, I gave some examples like trying to make the lines as straight as you can when you're cutting the grass. Trying to like play around with the mouse and like click on it. Like be more engaged and enjoy what you're doing a little bit more, you know? So hopefully this helps. And remember, the goal is to get in a flow state to enjoy work. And hopefully these like anchor points and things I talked about can help at least give you a better idea of how to get in the flow state, and just trace it back to like you being in the flow state when you were younger. And that was when you like, just remember how that felt when you used to play catch and with your like dad or mom or whatever, or when you like were playing a sport, you were playing your favorite sport and you were just thinking about the sport, you were in the moment, or like playing a board game or watching TV, your mind is there and you're enjoying it. So hopefully this helps and you can start to enjoy the work so much that you don't even feel like you're working. So thanks for watching, and hit that like and subscribe button, and hopefully you got some value out of this. Thank you.